Welcome to the Batman Book Club's Road to No Man's Land, Part 1. I'm your host, Ryan Lauer, and with me is my recurring guest, my part-time co-host, my associate producer, Peter Arvera.
I'm your Batman compañera.
Is that Italian?
I think it's actually Spanish.
Oh, well, look at you, trilingual.
I only know because that's the Yankees radio broadcast. It's two announcers. John Sterling always introduces Susan Waldman as his Yankees compañera. I have no idea what it means. It probably means something
on this road to No Man's Land. You're my Batman compañera.
Yeah, right. It just sounds exotic.
Welcome, Pete, for this venture that we're going on. We're traveling together. We're going to do 8 parts covering this road to No Man's Land, which you coerced me into buying the omnibus.
I really had to twist your
7.2 pound omnibus that we are going to travel down and explore.
You should have this. I made you do this. You should have this. It should be in every Bat fan's library. I'm sorry. This is up there with like Year One and Killing Joke. Like if you don't own this, you better get on it. Like it's that big of a deal.
Well, I say you coerced me a little bit because this wasn't my idea. You bought the omnibus and you were like, I would really love to cover Road to No Man's Land. And I said, well, if we're going to do Road to No Man's Land, then obviously we'd have to do No Man's Land. And then, the omnibuy started.
This is how I got Ryan to keep me around on the show and book me on other shows, not just monthly recaps.
And the issues included for all these will exceed over 100 issues. I mean, 150 maybe. It's gonna be a lot. And we said, let's start up on the YouTube channel. Let's let people see our faces. Let's dive into Road to No Man's Land. Really quick, Pete, just summarize though, what is your story on the love for the No Man's Land story itself?
It's part nostalgia. It's just part great writing and great characterization. When Gotham City is at its lowest point, when there is no law, when there is no order, there still is the Batman. And that's kind of what I feel like the core of the Batman is. And his cast of characters. There's, you get everybody from the Joker to a new Batgirl. So there's a lot that goes down within these pages. And, and even my, character that's been pretty popular right now, the Penguin, probably my favorite interpretation of Oswald is in No Man's Land. I just call it all No Man's Land. It's all one big thing to me. Yeah. Whether they want to call it Cataclysm, Road to No Man's Land, or however they want to divide it, it's all just No Man's Land. But it's really fascinating. I think I don't think anything's been written like this ever since. I really kind of feel like this is a one of a kind gem. But it's a collaborative effort. There's a lot of great minds that contributed to this giant tale. So it's not just Batman, it's Robin, it's Nightwing. I don't even remember what was probably printed back then, like Legends of the Dark Knight, Batman, they just some crazy title, Shadows of the Bat, like stuff like that. It's all in here. So we're gonna cover first to last, and there's some stuff in there that I haven't read in 10 years, and there's stuff in here that I haven't read at all. Wow. So to get the complete story is gonna be really a wonderful experience, because it's, like I said, it's probably a story I haven't read from cover to cover in like a decade.
Complete story, that's the key term here with doing the omnibus, as we were talking about it, because to try and pick the issues from whether it's DC Universe Infinite or Comixology or buying other trades and everything, it just seemed like going through this, the omnibus is probably the best way to go. So I've read this story once. I've read, counting Cataclysm, and then the previously released like trade collections. I've only read them once, so the story is pretty. There's one storyline that I know when we get to it way down the road that I'll be able to share my thoughts of, like when I read this and was open to this or heard about this the first time.
Well, there's a few of those moments actually.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like there's a lot in the whole No Man's Land saga that I don't remember because I only read it once, and there's a lot that I've never read before that was included in those trades. And so, how many times have you read No Man's Land, do you think, like in your lifetime?
Not many, because of the commitment. I would say I've read it cover to cover. This will probably be my 4th time.
Okay.
It's like I read it a lot when I got the trades. Like I just, it was just my long Batman fix. Like I'm
Those
thinking
trades
about
had like the red caution or the yellow
the
caution
yellow
tape on like
caution
the
tape.
spine,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, the original trades on like the construction paper, which I recently just rebought because I missed
Yeah.
them. We've been doing this. I felt really nostalgic, so I rebought the
Sure.
caution because I upgraded and I bought the new editions because that included a few more issues that weren't
Mhm.
included in the original printing. So it's probably like I read the original printing twice and then the new edition once, and this will probably be my fourth time. Really,
Excellent.
that's what
Well,
that's what I'd have to say.
so we're in for we're in for a journey together, Pete. And I'd rather go into Apocalypse with no one else than Peter Arvera. Basically, it's just what's because we just went to Apocalypse,
We
not too
did
long
the
ago too.
Oxus.
So for part one, we're going to talk about 6 issues. Detective Comics number 719, written by Chuck Dixon, with art from Jim Aparo, Flint Henry, and Mark Buckingham.
I mean, like
Shadows
that's how we start off the story. Like,
Yeah.
that if
Yeah.
if that's anything, like, okay, we're in for a treat. Like, I know it's a cast of writers and artists, but like, it's like, okay,
Sure.
issue number 1, Aparo and Dixon.
This is our hook. Shadows of the Bat number 73 with Alan Grant and Mark Buckingham. Nightwing number 19 with Chuck Dixon and Scott McDaniel. Batman 553 from Doug Mensch and Klaus Janson. Azrael number 40 with Denny O'Neil and Roger Robinson, and Detective Comics number 720 with Chuck Dixon, Graham Nolan, and Klaus Janson.
So how many amazing names did you just read in those bylines? Like, yeah. Oh God,
Chuck Dixon, Alan Grant, Denny O'Neil, Doug Mensch, Jim Aparo, Klaus Janson, Scott McDaniel. Like, yeah, it's a pretty good start.
Yeah, that's like I'm going to give you 6 issues written and drawn by legends.
Yeah, and which, I mean, that's exciting to me. And I mean, I think it's funny because this is the 6 issues that we read equals to, I mean, I don't know exactly how many, almost 150 pages. And it really does. And I know that there's so much left to go, just in the Road to No Man's Land omnibus, but it feels like we just scratched the surface. And I told you as soon as I read that,
feel like a scratch.
I the 6th issue when I finished reading that, and I told you, we have what do you want to say? A bit of a template of how we're going to do these parts. And I'm like, yeah, Pete, we're going to fly through this because I want to keep reading. I got done with that part. And I mean, we see the ultimate. Yeah, I definitely want to just keep going. And we see the main, what do you want to say? The main incident, the inciting incident of this Road to No Man's Land was the earthquake, the 7.6 earthquake that hits Gotham City, in which most of the issues are kind of seeing different perspectives of when this went down, how it affected Batman and Alfred there in Wayne Manor, how it affected Helena Bertinelli when she was there on the subway in Gotham, how it affected Nightwing, who's in Bloodhaven. I mean, a variety of Azrael, as he's bringing Bane to Gotham, how it affects them, and a fun little side mission because shout out to you, Ryan Haas. I'm not necessarily an Azrael fan, but even that issue,
it's a good issue. It's fun.
From the Azrael title itself,
action packed.
I was in on that. You had Azrael versus Bane, Nightfall, sequel, basically Nightfall matchup sequel. For 6 issues, this was a great like introduction into the mega event that we're about to head down to.
Yeah. It's weird because I feel like the most interesting story actually is the opening story about the thug trying to convince everyone else that he killed Batman right before the earthquake. It's fascinating how like one man thinks he can just say these crazy things. It's very Rick Shue of him. But it's like and I was like, okay, that's one of those stories I've never read before. I don't believe that was ever included in one of the previous issues. So like I was like, wow, okay, like that was fun. Like, okay. And then he goes right into like the earthquake stuff, and like you said, everyone's perspective on it. And it just brings me back to like, oh man, like Huntress has such a big part in this whole storyline.
See, and I
She's
don't remember her part, so I'm excited
she's in
because
it from the beginning, man. And she's probably got like, there's a Huntress Scarecrow issue that we're going to get you guys. That's going to just like blow your minds. And then there's everything that, I mean, she's a big factor in it. I don't want to spoil it all, but
awesome.
there's a lot to do with her.
It's interesting that you say that, because that first issue, Detective Comics 719, I feel like this is a standalone Legends of the Dark Knight issue. And then at the very end is an epilogue teasing into Cataclysm. Because you have a character
I like that. I get that. Okay, that's a cool idea. I like that vibe you're giving out there. Yeah.
What's her name? I don't know if she ends up Jolene Relazzo. Like she's measuring and she gets and then she's like, oh shit, she got her results back, and that, oh, something's coming. And and she is trying to, get a hold of whatever her hotline is or whatever. And then we find on the very last page, she's calling in to the Batcave, and the Batcave is empty. So she's trying to warn Batman, who isn't there. But I think everything before that, I like the issue for sure, and how
it's so disconnected from No Man's Land, but it's a fun
disconnect.
Like, I was like, wow, it was just a fun tale to put in there, and I was just like, just vintage Dixon.
As this guy, I think it's just interesting in how like Morg Tice, aka Momo, I think.
I love that Momo.
You're seeing his fantasy matched right up against reality, and how they did do the two different art styles, in which the one is Aparo, and like I really like that. I think that's interesting. I think that's really fun. A fun idea. But I mean, that was the opener to this, and I was really like, what's going on here? And then at the end you get that part, and it's like, okay, I mean, I'll take it, because it is a really cool story. But yeah, I don't know, it's an out there sort of.
I like the epilogue though, like that gets it. I was like, that's good. These Legends of the Dark Knight,
and that's where I immediately went into the next issue then, because I'm like, okay,
well, because it's easy with this great, like, I don't know if this was a cover or whatnot, but it's Batman's hand. You can see
I love that
rubble and all that stuff. Like, so like you're like, okay, here we go. This is it. It's gonna start here. And you see the caution tape with the next page turn if you have the omnibus.
Glenn Orbick. I've never heard of him before. Glenn Orbick. I really like that, like painted style. And of course, how do you know it's a Batcave? Because you have a T-Rex and a giant penny.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, that's the Batcave, all right. And then Batman's hand, obviously, and there's the top corner of a Joker card. But yeah, I think that's a really cool cover. I hope that there's more covers in this, because I've also tried to not look ahead at stuff, because I want to just be in for the ride and dive in. But I think, I mean, some highlights for me. I mean, I didn't mention Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon plays a pretty big factor in these here
Barbara
couple
Gordon
of issues.
Comes in and takes charge. Like, no, like they're like, oh, she's like, I'm Barbara Gordon and I'm running the show here. And everyone's like, okay, all right, Commissioner's daughter's in charge. And she's just like, I just love how Barbara's just like, okay, you guys don't know what you're doing. Let me tell you how this is done here and how we're going to save some lives. That's great. And actually look up and Bullock, I thought was fun. Did you? Okay, what did you think of that matchup?
I like that we got that part too. I was gonna say, I know I always start every podcast with, like released in blah 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 and all these formats, and I meant to say when this launched. I mean, the beginning of the omnibus, it says copyright 1998, 1999. That era I'm a little foggy in, except for The Long Halloween and Dark Victory. But as far as like monthlies and stuff, I feel like the Graham Nolan, Chuck Dixon, I for some reason that is like how I feel late 90s are, like that look and that vibe. I feel like that was, I don't know, that when you have to pinpoint of Batman comics, I'm like, oh, that was like the Nolan Dixon era, wasn't it? And so I don't know this, like I'm not really familiar with the storylines going into this. I know that I've covered Contagion, which is actually a precursor to Cataclysm, right?
Yes,
I covered that on the podcast. But aside from that, I don't know the actual like storylines and story beats. That brings me to how you asked the Bullock and Anarchy, is that I'm not exactly sure how heavy Bullock was involved in the monthlies at this time or anything. But I mean, he feels very Harvey Bullock, and how when shit goes down, And I think there's a funny little bit of humor there as he's trapped in like that little pipe with Anarchy, and they get the panel of them just looking at each other, and then this may not be a great time to say it, kid, but you're under arrest.
Yeah.
Like that got a genuine little chuckle out of me, but I liked Bullock through this. And then when Bullock ends up at GCPD and Barbara's there, and I mean he's got a freaking pipe in his arm.
I know, just yanks it out like he's Liver
Yanks
King.
it out, and he's like, I'm gonna and then he goes and he gets like, he helps Gordon. He finds Gordon in his office who's pinned at this point. So I like that matchup. I like the inclusion of Harvey Bullock. This is a Batman story in a Batman universe, and he
the end, you're like, whoa.
oh
Whoa.
dear.
Oh geez. Oh geez.
But I mean, I know that this is Batman focused and centric, but I do like the inclusion of the supporting characters that we're checking in on.
And that's, I'll tell you right now, going into this, we're in issue 2. We're talking about it like that's a big part of this. You're going to read a lot of the story that doesn't involve Batman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just warning, if you have no idea what No Man's Land is, like, you can read. I mean, it all depends. Like we're breaking it down hardcore. Like we're doing omnibuses here, but
we're breaking it down.
We're gonna talk about a lot of characters other than Batman. You know, if you want to kind of trim the fat a little bit and you just want to read the trades, you know, that's fine too. But there's a even in those, there's a huge amount of the story that doesn't involve Batman, that involves, you know, characters like Robin, Nightwing, Huntress, Gordon, especially Oswald, Killer Croc, even, you know, there's it's, you know, even just the citizens of Gotham. You know, there is a lot to be told within these pages, and that final page, like I said earlier, just kind of leaves you like, whoa, and then they throw you right into Nightwing.
Yeah. So you're talking about that second page where he's hanging, where his cape's hanging.
It's just Batman dangling in the cave unconscious. Like he's just caught by his cape on a sharp rock, and you know, it's like I can hear in my head an ending of like Batman 66 is, can the Dark Knight make it till next month? Find
or will
out
he fall
30
to
days,
his fall
right
to his death?
Here, your local comic shop, you know. Like I hear that in my head.
So you say the Nightwing issue. It really makes me think of I don't know where it's headed when we check in on the young man in that room, and he loves taco gong and crackers and soup and beans, and it seems like he's trying to think of a name. I don't know anything about this guy. He basically gets 2 pages. He looks out his window. He sees a place called Shooters. We slash prices every day. We take food stamps, hot buffalo wings, and all that stuff. And he's like, yeah, ... And that's like the tease of him. I don't know anything about what this is, but I'm intrigued. And I don't know if you know who this guy is, his backstory, where they're going to take him or anything. I felt like that was a tease for something.
I know who this is.
Okay.
And I remember it, but I can't remember his name. But I know, like, I was like, oh, I know this guy. I'm having like serious, like, character blonde moment where I'm like, oh, what's his name? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Tad.
You know?
At least he's got a picture in his room, and it looks like somebody had signed it and wrote Tad and said, you know, with warmest regards, John something.
I recently read like an issue of old like Nightwing that in my back issue run. I was like, oh my god, I remember this guy, but now I forgot his name. But it's, if I do a quick Google search, I'll find it. But he's an interesting character, to say the least. Why do I want to say like his name is like Nightwing, but with like a K?
Well, I'll wait. I'm not gonna cheat, because I know we have other, you know, sequential Nightwing issues included in this, so I'll get to experience it as they revealed at the time. That's like a tease of something that's to come. And you told me that a Helena Bertinelli is a standout in this No Man's Land saga.
Oh yeah, she does a lot of interesting things.
I really like the issue with her, which is I think that last Detective Comics 720. I think that's the one that she's in. Because she, I don't know, like she's down. It's almost like makes me think of like Rorschach in a sense of like there's this dude with a gun down there, and she's almost like, I'm not stuck here with you. You're stuck here with me, basically, because she kicks his ass. She's kind of an anti-hero in the sense of it's a choice of getting people to safety or save this dude's life, and he just shot and killed somebody, and he pulled a gun on her, was going to shoot her, but he did shoot her, and then he's going to shoot her again and ran out of bullets, and she had to make a decision. And she has like this internal dialogue of, basically just saying, I'm not Batman. I don't necessarily.
That's like her whole thing throughout this whole thing. She doesn't want to be Batman. She doesn't want to be one of Batman's sidekicks.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's almost kind of inevitable.
Oh yeah. Robin told me I was on probation with Batman. I had to be a good girl if I wanted to fit in. If that means saving the life of scum like that, I don't want in their little club. Hell, I think I'm the kind of hero Gotham deserves. And I think that's interesting to me. The issue is, I think that's a good issue, of course, written by Chuck Dixon. And then it's like the issue shifts, and that's where then we catch up with Alfred and Harold, your boy Harold.
I saw Harold. That was nice.
And then we see like Bruce's escape in his scuba gear, like going underneath the cave, and he said he's deep below the surface just trying to get to the surface because he's trapped. Alfred's trapped. He's got to get above the surface. And that was a great like final panel, which is why I told you I really wanted to continue reading, of where you see him, he's in the river.
He doesn't know how bad it is until he sees it.
In which I don't know if it was earlier in that issue that it talked about the one building that was tipping, and it was starting to become like a domino effect, but it feels like we get like Bruce sees that Gotham skyline, and yeah, it's like an eye-opener of like, this is how bad it really is. So it's again a nice point where we stopped for this part, but really intrigued of I want to keep going.
Yeah, it's a wonderful setup. It's great, and it's great when you read it all in one sitting in that order too. Like I was like, wow, okay, like this really.
Yeah, which you told me you did. You're like, I read them all.
Yeah, I read it all in one sitting. Yeah,
good.
It took me about like an hour. So.
Yeah, I get it. You can keep reading. So I want to ask you, Pete, of these issues, then, for these 6 issues that we read for this, what was your favorite issue?
That's tough. It really is. Like I had like, it's almost like a 3-way tie. Like 720 was really good. Nightwing was really good. And I do like that opening story with the thug. Like it's just a fun story, but it's not really No Man's Land related. So it's probably at the bottom, but it's probably 720 or Nightwing.
Okay. I think I'm with you on the 720, because I think it was an interesting below the surface story with Huntress. And then it does shift, and we catch up with Alfred really quick, introduce, like they sprinkle a little nugget with Harold, and then we jump to Bruce as he's also interesting. He's in the suit, but no cowl. So this is Bruce Wayne dressed up as Batman. And he even says at one point of like, it doesn't matter if Alfred's life's more important than like the secret identity. So as he's going to the surface, I think that issue stood out.
He has a lot of like vintage Bruce Wayne moments as he's swimming through the rocks.
And the combined efforts on the art of Graham Nolan and Klaus Janson, I thought were really, really good too.
Oh, so. It's just, I love what's his name, McNeil. I love his art. So it doesn't tell. It only tells you in the omnibus who.
You got to go to the actual issue.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you. It just tells you who's at the cover.
Yeah, which is that's an. I was kind of okay.
It's slightly annoying.
Yeah,
because I want to credit him, and I always forget his name.
On the ink, or what?
The artist of Nightwing.
The art for 720, unless you're talking about the other issue.
No, I'm talking about Nightwing.
Oh, okay, Scott McDaniel.
Yeah, McDaniel. I love McDaniel. Like I grew up with McDaniel. He's like, I see that art. It just brings me back.
Yeah, that's good. Which I guess. I don't know how to ask this.
This is a big question.
Yeah, a lot of pressure here.
Lower power.
Which story in this do you think plays the most important factor for what's to come? Aside from there's an earthquake. So we've got Huntress.
Probably
we've got
720 and
blonde-haired
Huntress. I
guy.
think
Okay.
Huntress, because I feel like outside of Batman, I think she's probably the second biggest character, at least for the first half of No Man's Land. So probably Huntress. She this is like, this arc is big for Huntress. It's big. It's big for Huntress. It's going to be big. It's big for it's big for Helena Bertinelli and what comes forward. We haven't gotten through yet. I just there's like I want to say something, but I'm like, is it too spoilery? Is it like, I don't want to be like Justin Kowalski, be like, hey guys, check this out, rad post. Like, no, I don't want to ruin it for you.
You just wait. In 7 issues, she turns into Batman and she dons the cape and cowl and she kills I don't know, Crazy Quill. It's wild.
Yeah,
you'll never see it coming. Okay. I don't know what else you want to say, Pete, before we check out here on the part 1 of
no, I just had a lot of fun.
Issues.
Like, this was a lot of fun for me just to go back and read this, and it's like, we're things are going to start getting good. Gotham City's has fallen to rubble, and Batman's seen it for the first time, so action must be taken, and let's see what old Sourpuss has up his sleeves.
So is it a pretty clear cutoff, you think, and separation of when Road to No Man's Land ends and when No Man's Land begins? You don't have to tell me exactly if there is like, oh yeah, the defining moment of when this transitions is
I guess probably like the defining moment of like when it's actually No Man's Land is probably when the city divides itself into basically its own
sections,
states.
Okay.
Yeah, governments. Gotcha. I'd say that's probably the hard line,
which feels like at the end of the Batman, you could totally see where No Man's Land could be an influence on the sequel or the Penguin series or something.
Well, you can also see it in Rises.
Yeah.
That's a big part of, like, everyone's like, why do you like Rises? The missed punch and all this stuff, the bomb. And I'm like, Robin. John Blake. I was like, I hate Blake, but like there's a lot of No Man's Land in Rises, and that makes me happy.
So. Excellent. Well, I mean, spoiler alert that you did mention No Man's Land is your favorite story on the episode 50 of the podcast when we did our top 10 Batman stories.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So there's nobody else to talk to about this other than the one and only Peter Verra.
That's right.
So we'll continue the talk, Pete, some point next month with the next 6 issues as the omnibus states we have to read, which would be Catwoman number 56, Robin number 52, Batman Blackgate, Isle of Men number 1, Batman Shadow of the Bat number 74, The Batman Chronicles number 12, and Nightwing number 20.
Look at you, finally getting you to read some Catwoman. Getting Lauer out of his comfort zone, but still in Gotham City. Isn't that weird how he loves Gotham so much, but he won't read Catwoman? Strange, isn't it?
Hey, I started to read Joelle Jones when she launched Catwoman.
What happened?
And then I got time. There's so much Batman to read.
Oh, yeah. But time to dump World's Finest. Tell you that much.
No comment there. Pete, thanks, pal, for jumping on here.
I hear a little oopses back there.
my little kitty's out there. He wants in.
He wants to say hello to Uncle Oopses.
I said we'd keep this around half an hour. That did not feel like half an hour, and here we are. Half an hour. That was quick.
At that, Ryan Lauer.
Yeah. Because we could really do like a hardcore deep dive in every issue, but I appreciate it, Pete. Why don't you go ahead and plug away anything at all that you want to do?
Well, if you'd like to follow me in my Uxisian theories,
yes,
you can follow me on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite platform, Vero, at Pete Illustrated. You can follow podcast number 1. That is a podcast I co-host with the champion of Long Island, Eric Holzman. That is Straight Out of Gotham at straight_O_G on both Instagram and Twitter. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook fan page. Consider joining both. They're a lot of fun. Follow both. It's interesting. You can hear Lauer talk about the Long Halloween more. Like, what more?
Why wouldn't you want that?
You can follow podcast number 2. That's the Italian Spider-Man Coalition podcast. It's a podcast that I co-host with Chicago's finest, Sausage and Meatball, father and son, Nicholas and Nico Caruso. Just a couple wops talking Spider-Man. At Team Yellow Oval on Twitter. the Oval's back on the big screen, or it could be HBO Max. That's up for Ezra Miller to decide. And it's back in print, so check that out. That's on Twitter at Team Yellow Oval. Follow me on batmanonfilm.com. I've got reviews. I've got toys, interviews with Uslin and Tara Strong. It's Batman 89 Day as we're recording this. I got my shirt, so thank Mr. U whenever you can, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. And that's really it. I'm all over the place. Let's just have fun interaction.
That's
I
it,
want
huh?
Ryan Lauer to read more comic books. What about you?
I think I'm gonna be reading a lot of comic books, Pete. So I'm gonna do okay.
Why don't you plug stuff on your own show?
I will. Follow the main deal behind the Batman Book Club, the podcast, on Twitter at thebatmanbc and Instagram at thebatmanbc for latest episode drops, upcoming episodes, sometimes some giveaways. And actually coming up next on the podcast will be my friend Peter and I here as we do our monthly wrap up on all the Batman comics in June. So follow that if you will. If you're watching this on YouTube, just go ahead and give a subscribe, because there's more things coming in the next couple months to the YouTube channel here, more discussions, more comic book readings. And if you want to write in with any questions or comments or concerns at all, you can do that at thebatmanbc@gmail.com. So that is I can't even read it. Oh, that's Uxus.
A little Uxus. Also,
yeah, check back a few episodes on the podcast. Got some Uxus. I'm adding to the Killing Joke.
This is the ninth printing. So I have
all of them.
Not all of them. Maybe I have 1, 5, 7, 9, 14. Something like that. I know I have 1, 5, 7, 9.
You're getting there. Fantastic. All right. So yeah, do the homework if you'd like for the next part on the road to No Man's Land, where Pete and I will be back here jumping into Gotham City yet again. So,
I already have No Man's Land, the omnibus. We only read 6 issues. Already have part 2
you're already ready for that one. He's ready. All right. So for Peter R. Verra, I am Ryan Lauer. Until next time, remember Batman.